In this video, we'll create annotated info cards that teach end users about the various pump components while the pump is in the exploded view state. This lesson will utilize the script component, so make sure you download the JavaScript file that is available to download in the description of this video. So far we have created this room with a pump in the middle that allows us to click on it. And let's give this a shot so we can just recap what we've done so far. So we've created some behaviors so that when we click on it, it scales up and then it creates this expanded or exploded view. So we have all the different components of the pump separated so they can be viewed independently. Now let's say that we want to add the ability to click on a hotspot for this, let's say the drive shaft, so I can learn some more about the drive shaft. So we want to be able to create some info cards that will pop up attached to or essentially connected with the various components of the pump. So let's look at how we're going to do that. Now, as you can see, there are, if I unnest or expand the centrifugal pump, there are about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 entities that we could potentially add some info cards to in this particular use case. I'm only actually going to do about 2, and you can see how you can expand that onto the other 6, but it's just going to be a little repetitive at that point. So I'm going to do 2, and then if you want to continue on, you can always add on. All right, so let's get started by adding some info cards. I'm going to click Create Entity, and then I'm going to go to Quad. We've used Quad before for the floor, actually. And I'm going to change the transform 2.5. 1.5 and 2.5. I'm going to change the scale to 1.5. All right. So that's where our card is going to be in the scene. To add some text, there's a few different ways you can do it. There's obviously the script that we have provided in the description of this video. Here's the file that you can get, and there are 3 different scripts. Here's the first one. Here is the second one, and the third one, which is the one we're going to use right now, is the bottom one. It's pretty long, and we're not going to go through scripting at this point. We'll just discuss a little bit about what scripts can do. But for this part, all I really need to do is just copy and paste this very long script at the very bottom. And so let's first change the name of this, and we're going to call this one info card 1. All right. Now to add a script, you go add component. And then we go to the script component. So this adds a script component, and now we want to add a script instance. So I click the plus button, and I'll go to custom preview format. If you don't see those 2 options, then just click custom. And to open up this script editor, I'm going to click the pencil icon. So here is for the most part, nearly empty script. I'm just going to select all this and paste in the other one. I'm going to call this one text script, and I'll click save. Again, there's a lot here that we're not going to go over in this tutorial. But what it does provide, if I exit out of this, provides a bunch of parameters that we can change. And so let's change a few parameters. This essentially allows us to put a text editor on our quad. That's essentially what this script does. It's very, very handy. So the first thing we want to do is, let's do background. Let's select a background of purple. Let's do the text color to be white. And the font size will be 30. We'll leave center middle. Now here's actually where we place our text. If you go over to the file that we provided, we did just include a lorem ipsum line of text. So you can use whatever you want, but we just decided we're not going to get into the details of describing the various parts of this pump, so we'll just use some dummy text like this. Okay, now nothing actually changes, as you can see here on the quad. That's because to execute this script, it has to be in play mode. So if we press play, then we'll be able to see it. Okay, there's our text. But you see there's not a purple background, which I want a purple background. You can leave the opacity at 0, but to actually see that purple background, we need to change the background opacity to 1. So then now if we press play, then we can see our text. So there's an info card, an example info card. I want to go a little bit lighter purple. Let's test that out. Perfect. Okay. So that is our info card. Now I need to add a hotspot that we click on that will allow us to interact with this and see this info card. Now you might be wondering, why not actually be able to just click on the drive shaft itself, for example, in this instance, which is what we're going to be doing. And the reason why is because the way we have set this up is if you click on the drive shaft, it will then scale, it'll go back to its initial size. And so let's just do that real quick. The card is going to be there, but that's okay. So it'd be nice to be able to go just click on this to see the card, but you see what happens is that it goes back together and then scales down in size. And so to essentially get around that, we're going to create a little hotspot that you can click on instead. All right, so we're going to use, you can use really any entity you want. I'm just going to go ahead and use a sphere, and I'll call it hotspot 1. So remember, we're going to do 2 info cards and 2 hotspots. Let's click our hotspot and change some of the transform values. So first we want to make it 2.1, 3.1, 2.7. Oops, I didn't actually do that. 2.7. And the size, we want to reduce it down to 0.4. So it's a little bit smaller. And just to make it a little bit more interesting, we'll make it all white. All these colors white. So it doesn't look like necessarily a sphere in a realistic looking 3D space. That's why. This is totally unnecessary, but just for aesthetics, that's what we're going to do. Okay, so now let's just look at what this does. I'm going to hide info card 1 because we just don't need to see it hitting that little eyeball button. So if I press play, so that's a pretty good spot for where we want our hotspot to be. Go ahead and stop. Here's where we're going to add in some scripts. So let's for the hotspot 1, let's click add component, and we'll add a script component. Then we'll press plus to add a new script, and then we'll use the preview format. Again, at the recording of this video, there are 2 different kind of script options. If you don't see an option for that, just click custom. And we will press the edit button, and this will bring up our text editor again. Remember, this is our text script that we've already added to the info card. For this one, we're going to rename this emit message on click tap. I'll explain what that means in a minute. And if we go over to our actual script, it's this fairly short script here. I'll just copy and paste that in here. Now again, we're not doing a full detailed tutorial on scripting, but essentially what this does is this allows us, this is really just like a click and emit action or behavior. And so I will click out of this because essentially, as you can see down here in the script component, there's a script instance that allows us to enter in a custom event name. And so I will call this one info card 1. What's unique about this is that what happens is that it's emitting, instead of adding a state machine and adding different states, this is a quicker and easier way to just emit a message using the script, emit a message out into the world that we're making info card 1. We're then going to, on info card 1, we're going to add another script. Just hide this text script for now. We don't really need to mess with that anymore. I'll add another script. Oh, I don't actually need another script component. I just need to add a new script. So I'll add a new script. I will edit this script. And I will now bring in our other script that we provide, the third one. And I will rename this one to be visibility toggle. And I'll click Save. So now we have a hotspot that has a script that when we click on it, this being the hotspot, it emits this message. This one is listening now for a message that we're going to make, info card 1. I want to just, 1, and I just want to make sure that my event names or my messages are the same. Info card 1. Really, the better thing to do is to copy and paste, just to ensure that everything is consistent. So what's happening here? So if we have this script attached to the hotspot that is emitting this message, and the info card has this script, which first hides the card or the entity, but it's listening for this message, and when it hears that message emitted, it's going to show the entity, in this case being the info card. So let's click play and press, see how it works. Actually, let me show the card. Okay, so there it's shown. But now you see how it's hid. So by default, it's hid. I click the hotspot, and now I can see it. Great. It works the way we want it to work so far. But as you can see, if I just leave it like this, I just have this hotspot out here that has nothing to do with anything yet at this point. What I want to do is first only show the hotspot when we get into the exploded view. So I don't want to have the option to click the hotspot until we get into the exploded view. So to do that, I just need to click on the hotspot, and I'm going to add a component. I'm going to add a state machine. We're going to move through this fairly quickly. We're just going to call state 1 listen, and we're going to be listening for the explode message. We're then going to, let's see, wait, and we'll add a wait action, and we'll make it 1.5, so it's 1.5 seconds. So it's going to wait until everything is exploded and in place and then appear, because remember, it takes 1 second for that exploded view from the scale into the exploded view to take place. So we'll do 1.5 seconds. Then we're going to add another state, and we're just going to call this one show. We will add action, and we will call this one show. You see it doesn't have a transition, so we do need to add a transition action. So I will add transition. And then I'm going to take listen and duplicate that. And then I'm going to add another state, and we'll call this one hide. And I'm going to add an action, and I'm going to look for hide. So really, all this is doing is I need one final transition action. Okay, so we have all these states. Oops, come on, get my transitions. There we go. Creating transitions. So this is listening. Okay, great. It kind of works, but as you can see, when I stop and then I start again, you see how it's there already. We don't want it showing yet. So this is a very simple fix. All we need to do is click the hide state and set that as the initial state. So that when I will press play again, it hides itself when it's not in exploded view, and it shows itself when it is in exploded view. One thing to remember is that you could also turn down the opacity instead of doing the show or hide, but the thing is with opacity, you can still click on them. So even if you can't see them, if you accidentally click on them, if you use like just to remove the opacity, it would still initiate that behavior. It would still respond to something like a click. But the show and hide actions actually don't allow you to click on it at all. So that's why we're using these. So again, there are a few different options and a few different ways to do it, but that's the way we're choosing to do it. All right, there's one other thing I want to add to the sphere, this hotspot, is that I want it to kind of pulse a little bit to make it obvious that this is something that you can click on. So I'm going to click on hotspot. I'm going to add, I forgot to rename this behavior. So we will call this one hotspot show hide behavior. Okay. Okay, so now we have it named. I want to add another behavior, and I won't make that mistake again. I'll just name it right from the beginning. I'll call it hotspot pulse behavior. Pulse meaning it just kind of pulses. It kind of gets larger and smaller. So the first state I'm going to call big, and I'm going to add the action tween scale. We've used this before. So if you remember, we reduced the size of our hotspot or our sphere down to 0.4. And so to make it bigger, we just want to make it 0.45. We'll uncheck relative. We'll leave it linear, and we'll also make this one, I believe, something like 0.3. I'm going to duplicate this state. And instead of big, I'll just call it small. And we'll just take it down to 0.4. Then I'll add transitions in there like that. Now this is going to be running. See how it keeps going back and forth? But you just can't see it because it's hid. So if when I click it, there we go. See how it's kind of pulsing? That's maybe a little bit too fast. So let's change it to 0.7. And 0.7. There we go. Not as obnoxious. And then when I click on it, there it shows something, or it shows that info card. All right, so it's working the way we want it to work. Now we want to be able to duplicate it to add another hotspot. So hotspot 2 and info card 2. So let's simply duplicate hotspot 1 and duplicate info card 1. And let's also just create some empty entities to nest all these. So I will call this info card, and I'll take both info cards and nest it there. It's warning me that something could get altered or changed with the script because I did that, but it's okay. I'll add another entity, just an empty entity, and call it hotspots. And we'll select both of these. Drag and drop it into the hotspots entity. Great, so now it's just a little bit more organized. So let's go into info card and then the info card 2, and I'll change the transform 7, 2.3, keep getting my 1.3, and -1. I was mixing up the translation values for the hotspot in the info card. So this one we want to be for hotspot 2. We're going to make it 7, 2.8, and -0.62. All right, great. Now we should have some scripts on these, but the thing is we want to emit a different message. So we'll emit info card 2. In info card 2, we want to be listening to info card 2. All right. Now hotspot 2, we also want to make sure that they have the 2 state machines. Let's see how this works. Okay, we're not seeing anything. That's good. Now I can click on this one and I can get an info card. Great. And if I unselect that, I can go over to this one and get an info card on the drive shaft. Great, it's working the way I want. So as you can see, it's pretty easy for me to replicate this. And all I would need to do is just kind of move them around. I could put a hotspot and a card over by this piece and then another one over by this piece. And so I could keep going and add info cards for each component of the pump. And one thing that I just realized is that the sign has not been showing. I don't know how that got hidden, but let's just show that sign. So great. If I click the pump, then it decreases. One thing that I have not mentioned yet is that if I were to not, it makes sense that if I was to just click the pump here, that the info card would still actually be showing. Well, the script, one thing we built in was that once this is actually clicked, it's going to hide all of the info cards as well. So that's one thing that's nice about those scripts, is that it allows us to not have to worry about this still being hid and then, or shown, and then we click on the pump and then it's still showing, which would be kind of weird because it wouldn't have a reason to be shown once it is down back to its normal size. And so that's one nice thing about the scripts, is that it includes the ability to hide all of the info cards once the pump is clicked. That's just kind of included in the script. That's it for this video. We hope you enjoyed learning how to add info cards using behaviors, state machine behaviors, and scripts. In the next video, we're going to show you how to publish a scene to create a unique URL, or public unique URL, that you can view from most major web browsers. I hope you join us, and thanks again for watching. Thanks for watching, and make sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel. And if you have any questions, please leave them in the comments of this video. If you haven't already, please join also our Sumerian community on Slack at slack.sumerian.world.